Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ACF Chefs Forum. We're really glad you could join us today for an exciting webinar on five-star elegance for everyone. ACF is all about connecting and supporting you, the leaders of the food service industry, and today is no different. Before we get into it, just a quick reminder, we'll be answering your questions about after the presentation, so feel free to use the Q&A function anytime during the session to ask those questions. And don't forget to jump in the chat to say hi and collaborate with each other. Let's start by sharing where you're from, tuning in from today. We'd all love to know where you're tuning in from. I'm Chris Tanner, Executive Director of the American Culinary Federation, and now let's get to today's expert. Allow me to introduce today's presenter, Chef Tim Recker, CEC, AAC, MWMCS, CWX. He's the Executive Chef at Frenchman's Creek Beach and Country Club in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Tim has had an incredible career, including his time as Director of Culinary Operations at Quail West Golf and Country Club. With over 30 years of experience, Chef Recker's expertise spans everything from casual fine dining to high-end fine dining. He's also been part of the ACF U.S. National Culinary Olympics team in both 2020 and 2024 and has earned over 50 medals in national and international competitions. He's a true mentor to young chefs with a presidential medallion from the ACF and the prestigious Chef Professionalism Award underneath his belt. Simply put, he's a culinary powerhouse and a good friend as well, Chef. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Chef Tim Recker. Take it away, Chef.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it, Chris. Always good to see you and talk with you again. And for the 20 some years that we've known each other, it's always been good. This is a great topic, and I think it was fun to really do some research on it. It's something that I really enjoy doing and having a good time with it. For me, I kind of was looking, okay, so where did this all kind of start? And I look backwards, and Daniel Boulud came out years ago with this burger that he still sells, right? The DB burger. So it's this great beef stuffed with braised short rib, topped with foie gras and tons of black truffles on it. And, and this was, probably a couple of decades ago. And I think it really was probably the kickstart to all this. As chefs, we look and we see, why does this kind of thing work and why do we do it? And, as chefs, we always want to use like the best possible ingredient we can. I know I really love truffles. I love foie gras. I didn't at first, but now, caviar is one of my favorite things to do and eat. And how did this, we want to introduce that to our members, to our diners and to our kitchens. So how do we do that? It's not all of us work in fine dining. I work at a club, so I sell a lot of, tuna sandwiches and grilled cheese and French fries. So finding a way to do that, I think, is important as chefs for us as we develop our own cuisine, and then also introduce our cooks and the younger diners that are coming in that may not have grown up with that kind of elegant dining, and the fine dining trend is very different than it was, a dozen years ago. I know I follow a lot of different chefs, social media. I get, an email from Ad Hoc Restaurant, one of Thomas Keller's restaurant, and they put out a daily menu, and he's really famous for, his fried chicken there. But every single menu has an option to add caviar to it. And it's, great caviar with creme fraiche, chives, and potato chips. Even Thomas Keller is doing it. Restaurants out in LA, one of them they call it bougie tots, so it's frozen tater tots, but covered in creme fraiche and different kinds of caviar and sieved eggs. And you got restaurants, casual dining restaurants doing truffle fries, and you're seeing it more and more and more. I know Pringles puts out a box that, is a caviar box. It's designed to eat caviar with Pringles potato chips, something you buy at a gas station, right, on a road trip. But chefs are now able to take that and move it up. And, there's tons of them. We could sit here and talk about different things. And I have certainly some things that I've done and want to talk about. I remember following a chef up in Boston, a restaurant called Little Donkey, and they do a caviar slider. So it's a Hawaiian roll with creme fraiche and a lot of caviar in there. Caviar is definitely, if you guys, I know I got and read this morning, the new NCR just came out. And, obviously the timing setup was perfect. So they talked about this kind of thing. So 5-star elegance for every day. Caviar is the new ingredient. You're seeing it everywhere. Younger people are doing it. Caviar bumps all over social media. The Pringles, caviar French fries. It's just a thing. And it's a great trend. I think it's introducing a lot. And there's ways to do it that are user friendly and price point friendly. And, there's so many different great caviars now. You don't have to just try to get Osetra. America has some phenomenal caviars. Idaho, it has some of the best sturgeon caviar I've ever had. And I think it's really great. I know I look backwards on my career, when I was doing my like tryout cooking for the Madison Hotel, a number of years ago in Washington, D.C. One of the things I had to do being in a hotel was come up with a breakfast dish for their signature restaurant. So, I did duck confit hash with a poached duck egg and duck egg hollandaise. And, well, maybe nowadays it doesn't seem like that big a thing, but I remember they were pretty happy about it, that it was kind of, out of the norm, but something that was understandable, right? Corned beef hash with eggs and hollandaise sauce. We just kind of twisted a little bit. Drew Garms, a chef I have a ton of respect for, and a friend, and I followed him. I've made one of his dishes. He made like spaghetti, like pasta, like spaghetti, and he had made like an uni butter, like so he pureed uni right into butter and made that as the sauce, and then had like caviar on it, and then he soft poached a quail egg and wrapped it in gold leaf. Like, talk about gilding the lily, right? So I think those are kind of where it all came from. So being able to introduce ingredients. So you're looking at like, for me, it's like duck confit, right? Or duck. Like, how do we get duck into everyday use? It's not always the best seller. Duck meatloaf. Like, I make duck sliders, duck. I did a duck Salisbury steak, with wild mushrooms that I thought was really great. And we sold a bunch of them, and people were able to try it because it was approachable and understandable. I had a great breakfast in London, my first trip there, at a restaurant called Duck and Waffles. And it literally was a potato and chive waffle, and they had, fried duck confit on top. And that was their version of chicken and waffles, but they did it with duck confit and ways to do that. I just saw yesterday, in fact, as I was looking online, there's a chef that I follow. He doesn't run a restaurant. He's like a social media chef. But they took caviar into McDonald's, and they were dipping chicken nuggets. Like, so they had nuggets and caviar, like in a McDonald's itself, right? Social media, a lot of it I'm sure was just for that, but that sounded really pretty good. Like that could be something really, really useful there. So I was kind of looking at that. Lobster rolls, little sliders, things like that. There's different ways to do it. And we could sit here and talk ideas together back and forth. So I'm hoping I can learn some from you guys too. So, a couple of the other things we do, like a great way for me to get wild game into a menu, venison Swedish meatballs, looking at ways you can implement those items into your everyday options, I think is a great way to go. I'm not sure.
We've got a couple questions, and they're topic, off topic, on topic kind of.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if either one of us can answer this. How do we grow truffles?
I think the person that figures out how to really do that is going to be sitting pretty good.
Yeah.
I remember actually attending an ACF. I think it was back in the day when there was a regional one. There was a chef in North Carolina that basically had started like a truffle farm. So what he had done, and this was really interesting to me, is because I remember talking to him. So he went over to France and was learning. So the trees that the truffles grow under had got some sort of like bacteria or whatever it was, or fungus, that's where they tended to grow. So he got trees that had been inoculated with that and had them on this land, these acres he had, so that there was a good shot that they were going to grow. And it happened. Now, I don't think it's like a mass production way it works now, but I know they've been working on that for years. And a lot of it he ended up figuring out because when he was buying the truffles from France and he brought them home, they had the dirt on them, and they had the dirt analyzed and looked for the soil content and the environment. But actually, I remember learning that at an ACF conference a number of years ago, and I always thought that was kind of cool. But the person that figures out how to grow truffles is probably going to be doing pretty good.
Yeah, I know that I saw someone, that may have been that same person, but some other people I've read about over the years that knew that they grew around oak trees.
Yeah.
But they're random. So, and they have here in the United States, I know when they do try to grow them out in Oregon, they're using dogs to hunt them rather than pigs, because the pigs will eat them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. There's some people that are still experimenting with it, but certainly I don't think that anyone's truly found it. You certainly could keep trying, but once you find someone that's going to be able to do that, it's they'll be gangbusters instead of having to pay for them to be imported over from Italy or France.
Yeah, I mean, that's the old picture. They always have the guy with the pig, and he always has a big stick. I remember reading that they had the stick so you could pry the pig off the truffle itself. And that's a good truffles too. Like trying to use truffles, obviously they're not cheap, but there are ways to get around that. So like summer truffles, I buy a lot of summer truffles. I buy them from Oregon, from a company that I really love, and I'll preserve them, which is a technique I learned from Chef Rosendale. You preserve them in like half brandy and half Madeira, and then you get the liquid that's great to cook with. But you can get like a pound of truffles for a couple $100 and preserve them, and you're able to use them that way. Like I would never want to cook with this a white truffle from Umbria that cost me a lot of money, but I could use these other truffles in a different way.
Yeah, I think
that's a way to kind of make that price point.
Yeah, and I think particularly so, you're talking about country clubs in other areas, but we have a lot of people who have mainstream restaurants and looking at cost effectiveness. So a lot of times when you're seeing some of the other restaurants use truffles as an ingredient, it's a truffle oil, which is not really truffle.
Right.
But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with that product either. If people like it, and some people love that flavor profile. If you're going to Dave and Buster's or Popeyes when they just had theirs recently, they're not putting truffles onto their product.
Right.
These are a truffle flavored product.
No, absolutely. And I think that's an important thing as chefs. We all want to use the thing, and we all want to talk down about other things. But at the end of the day, there's a place for everything. And there's a market for everything. You're not going to use, Perigord truffles and toss them in your French fries if you're Dave and Buster's, right? But you can still provide that flavor profile. And that's also educating our people, our diners, and then when they go somewhere else and maybe they're going to a nicer restaurant, they're going, oh, I really love truffles, and they're going to be able to try it then.
Yeah.
I think it's a good way to look at it.
We had another question asking about caviar. Is caviar really that expensive, and why is it now that it's a hot topic? They also want to know how they could put that product on for kids too. I'm not sure about that one. If you could figure that one out, my 11 and 9-year-old would try it. But actually, I'll take it back. My 11-year-old loves caviar. She's had those caviar cones that they have at Jose Andreas's restaurant, Haleo down in Orlando, because we're here in Florida, obviously. So at Disney, they had them there. So she loves those, but I can't say that she would actually go out of her way for caviar. But why do you think it's expensive? Is it really that expensive? And why is it a hot topic now?
No, I think the price, there's a couple reasons. Obviously, the production of it and how it's done and all that things, and a lot of it's imported. And then also that is the market, right? Look at an iPhone, right? None of us need an iPhone. Yet we can't, people constantly line up and get $1,000.
Tell my 9-year-old that he insists he needs one.
Yeah, exactly, right. But the value is not price driven; it's experience driven for me. But there is a lot of different types of caviar. So, and it's not all here. Like I said, Idaho has some amazing sturgeon caviar, but there's other fish, America, the paddlefish, hackleback, wild hackleback caviar. And you can get, an ounce of that caviar, commercially for, for $20, $30 for an ounce of caviar. That's really good. Now, is it, high end golden Osetra? No, it's not. But especially if you're going to use it on, in a different application, in French fries, you're going to put it in, you're going to make French onion dip with caviar and serve it with Pringles. Those kind of things, that's the perfect way to do it. And it's a great way to introduce it because you have very little, you don't have too much skin in the game. So you spend $40 and you make some pasta hors d'oeuvres, and you do little baked fringling potatoes, and you fill them with creme fraiche and a little spoonful of caviar on there. So you got a great high-end pasta hors d'oeuvre for a wine dinner or a wedding. You didn't have to spend a ton of money, and it's a great way to try it out. But and that's kind of how I educated myself with caviar. I had a salesperson and a vendor came in. We tasted a bunch of them. I know which ones I like more than others. But I was able to bring in some of the lower cost caviar that's still really well done and well produced, and kind of learn to appreciate it and learn what I was looking for. And that's a good way to introduce it to your staff, and to start cooking with it. I love doing caviar sauce, so we'll make a vin blanc sauce for a fish, and we'll spoon in some. And it's not just sturgeon either. We'll put in like smoked trout roe. It's got a great flavor to it. They're little, they pop a little bit. You eat sushi, you're eating caviar all the time, right? You have masago and tamagi, so you got flying fish roe. So there's different ways to use it, and I think that's a good way to introduce it to your team.
Yeah, just any of you who've had sushi before, and you see those little red eggs or orange eggs or green eggs are all colored with wasabi, or you're eating caviar. So just it's a great way to introduce your kids. So what's the best way to get your kids to have it? Put it on a California roll.
Exactly. And there's a lot of and their flavor in some of it too. Like the smoked trout roll I like a lot, but I've seen bacon ones and bourbon flavored, and
Oh yeah.
there's definitely wasabi, and there's some other ways that have kind of done. Now, why it's a hot topic now, I don't know. I mean, things come and go in cycles, and whatever it was, social media obviously drives a ton of it, I think. And you see, the chefs all the time, and they're eating caviar off their hands, and they'll and at a fundraiser, and there'll be people there. They have I just saw something, or people walking around. They have like a little caviar holster almost. Their little thing. They pull out a blini, and then they put a little this, and they hand it to you right there in front of you. So that's definitely driving some of that trend, I think.
Yeah. One last question. I'm going to let you keep going on your chat. And I think it's a pertinent one for truffles because we're just talking about it. Is there a specific amount of truffles in truffle oil, or if any at all?
To my knowledge, truffle oil does not contain real truffles. A lot of times there's it's manufactured. There are a lot of truffle products. You can buy canned truffle peelings, truffle shavings. There's truffle paste. Truffle salt is a big thing. If I remember correctly, at one point up at CIA and Apple Pie Bakery, and this is a long time ago when I was up there, they were selling truffle fries, and I think they tossed them in truffle salt. So there's a way to do that. There's a spice company, Spiceology, that has some really great spices, but one of them they have is a charcoal truffle dust. So it's got activated charcoal and black truffle. I believe they use real truffle, but truffle oil, to my knowledge, is not made from real truffles.
Yeah, and that's so there's this blend, and I can't remember the name of the company. They do a blend. It's with truffles, mushrooms, and olives in it. And those are three flavors that marry real well together, but the flavor of the truffle comes out so much more. But so I was just, as we're sitting here talking, I wanted to look up, because I know in my food science background prior to this, I wanted to go find what the chemical was that makes truffle flavor, because there's a chemical that mimics the flavor of truffle. It's 2,4 dithapentane.
Okay.
So your dithapentane oil tastes like truffle. So
yeah, I mean, we've all heard that. And I have no issue using truffle oil and things, especially if you're using something like a summer truffle, which isn't going to be as strong. So if I'm doing a risotto with truffle, we may take a little bit, and usually I'll take truffle oil and cut it with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. And we may put a couple drops on the top. A lot of it that is the aroma too, right? So it hits something hot. So when it goes out to your member, your diner, they're going to get that instant aroma of the truffle right away, and oh wow, and they can kind of see it. And they're going to experience it before they even taste it, and I think that's good. I think it's just something you got to use sparingly too. But yeah, like you said, there's no way Dave and Buster's is shaving fresh truffles, and that's okay. Everything has a market. I sell a lot of French fries, so.
right, but you can make truffle oil if you want to, as you mentioned, for a little bit higher end, because there is no such thing as truffle oil. It's a tuber at the end of the day. It's like a mushroom. It's the closest thing to a mushroom. So you can infuse it into the different things we're talking about, like into an oil, by adding some of the truffle shavings into an oil, add it to salt, add it to sugar, just like you would take a vanilla bean and put it into sugar to make vanilla sugar.
Absolutely.
The same thing with the oil if you wanted to do that instead of having to buy that.
Yeah, I mean, and the truffle, it's a great way. You can permeate things. We've all heard about, you store truffles in risotto, although I've heard that's not the best way. But, if you do that, so when I buy truffles, you want to maximize them. So I'll do a couple of different things with them. So first I'll put them, I'll put them into risotto for a week, kind of let them ripen a little bit. But then the risotto takes on that aroma, right? And then I will take the truffles and put them in a deli or something with some eggs. Eggs are porous, so eggs will suck up that flavor. So after a couple of days, you take those eggs and you scramble them. You got truffle flavored scrambled eggs. You still haven't touched your truffle yet. And like I said, I'll preserve them in half brandy and half Madeira. Bring it up, heat it up, pour that into a jar, seal it up, and it preserves the truffle so it doesn't go bad, and I can use it later on. But then you also get that truffle infused brandy Madeira, which is, it's great in your sauces. So there's a way to do that. And I remember, we were talking about the farmer, a guy who was trying to grow truffles. I remember him telling me he took truffle and he would put a truffle in a bottle of vodka. And then over time, he could make truffle martinis. Now I don't know, it's not my thing. I'm not a martini guy. However, I think that'd be pretty cool, like a way to infuse that over and trying to use that. And that's another way to introduce those ingredients.
Well, honestly, at the end of the day, that's how extracts are made. So an extract is made by infusing a neutral spirit, so vodka or what was Everclear that people used to use to make things. But that's actually the best thing to make vanilla extract with, and it's the same thing with truffle. So if you want to make a truffle extract, rather than putting it in oil, you soak them in Everclear or soak them in vodka, a neutral flavor vodka like Tito's, which has zero flavor to it. And that's one of the best ways to use as an extract for flavors for things too.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a way to extend this and to really, because again, we're talking, while there's ways to make this less pricey, at the end of the day, some of these ingredients are going to cost you a fair amount. And a way to maximize it, we're all chefs, we all want to cook, and that's our number one focus. But, those of us that are running a commercial operation, we have financial responsibilities too. So the reality of it is we all worry about food costs. So you got to make it work. And those are great ways to extend something and really do it the same way you would look at when you are butchering fish or butchering meat, your vegetables, you're turning, scraps to stock, you're making purees with the trim, you're doing different things to maximize the yield on the product, for financial reasons, and also to respect the animal and respect the process. You can do the same thing with your high-end ingredients. And I think that's crucial.
Yeah, I've got some other questions, but I'll let you continue on your journey, and we'll come back to some of them.
Just a couple more things that I saw that I thought were pretty cool. And I've never tried this. I read it today in NCR, but they talked about burrata. Certainly a big trendy ingredient over the past number of years. Growing up, I never heard of burrata. I heard of mozzarella, but
Yeah.
burrata has become a real thing, right? So they were putting caviar on top of the burrata. So you got this really soft and kind of a neutral flavored burrata cheese, and then you put this salty umami caviar on it, because I'm always putting salt on the burrata. Like, well, here's a way to add salt to it. That's another thing. You can use these ingredients. I remember reading and learning, like in New Orleans, they use tasso ham, not as a ham or a meat, but as a flavoring agent, right? As an ingredient.
It's for flavor. Tasso ham is not meant for sandwiches.
Yeah, exactly. So using something like caviar, you can use that as a flavor ingredient. So like salt would enhance the flavor. You're putting the caviar there. It's going to add some salinity. And it's also going to bring that flavor, that umami, the protein, that you're going to get a really good pop out of that. I think that's good. And then even something as simple, I just did it the other day and I got a lot of response on it. So, we called it an egg salad royale sandwich. So we had some really great smoked salmon, and we had, we're a country club here, so we sell a lot of egg salad to our people at lunchtime. We made a sandwich with egg salad and we put slices of smoked salmon on it. Again, smoked salmon is not super high end when you look at other ingredients, but for a lot of people, that's not every day.
It's still pretty expensive when it comes down to it too, by the pound, like $20-$25 a pound. So
for sure. I know at La Bernardin, Eric Ripert was pretty famous for one of his things, and I've used it as an amuse and a passe hors d'oeuvre. He would make a grilled cheese sandwich. So he would use toasted brioche, but he would fill it with mascarpone and smoked salmon, and then would put like salmon caviar on top. All right, well, here's a grilled cheese sandwich, but now we got a couple really neat ingredients in there. Well, three really. You got really good mascarpone cheese, you got smoked salmon or some Nova or whatever you want to use, or cured. You could cure your own. And then a little bit of salmon roe on top. So another great way to do that. And passe hors d'oeuvres, I think, are a phenomenal way to do it. You can do so many things with passe hors d'oeuvres, and people are inclined to try that. It's like the appetizer, right? More inclined to invest in an appetizer. You don't like it, no big deal. You can still got dinner coming. But if you're passing hors d'oeuvres, a little thing with a caviar on it. We've all done the smoked salmon things before. A little foie gras here or there. It's a little bit easier to kind of do. With sliders, right? We've all made tons of those. You could do a burger slider and put a little piece of foie gras or a little foie gras butter or truffle cheese. They make truffle really great artisanal cheeses with truffles. I think that's a kind of neat way to do that. One else I had saw too, and I'm trying to remember where I had seen it. I have the recipe. I ripped it out of something, but a guy had made like foie gras bratwurst, right? So I love charcuterie, right? So it's one of my passions in making sausage. I grew up in the Midwest, so Wisconsin brats were a thing. But here's a chef who took foie gras and ground some foie gras and used like probably scrap or grade B and ground that into his bratwurst. Now you got to be a little careful cooking it, but obviously you're going to put your fat in there, which you need in your sausage anyway. And you're going to get that really kind of neat flavor in a bratwurst. And that would be kind of a cool little thing. Like, so now I'm just thinking, now I'm doing foie gras bratwurst corn dogs, right? That could work, right? That would be something that could be kind of fun, and I think people would try that.
Yeah, I always had a hard time in a semi-emulsified force meat. So like making a coarse grind sausage, keeping the emulsion with the foie gras. So
Yeah,
I
it's
never
tricky.
tried doing a fully emulsified like a vice versa or like a Frankfurter or knockwurst. I wonder how that would go in there, because you're using, it's still kind of solid, but you're pureeing the fat before it goes into it. I wonder if it would go into an emulsified mortadella or something like that a little bit better. I've never tried that. I got to try that sometime.
Yeah, I think it would. I know one of the guys when I was on so I kind of get like obsessed with different things. For me, charcuterie's always been one of them, and like pate en croûte is one of my things right now. But for a while I was into pasta, and I still love making pasta, but I was like making pasta like every day, right? Then it was pizza, and I was making, trying to different every kind of pizza you can imagine. So I remember doing when I was, and I still love making beef Wellington. It's like one of my favorite things to
Oh,
make.
boy.
It's such a cool, yeah, it's great, right? I mean, what chef doesn't like doing that, right? And it's the challenge.
Yeah.
But and I think it was Drew Garms at the Everglades Club, but he had talked to me about it, like, it should have foie in there. But how do you keep that from breaking and getting greasy? And I'm pretty sure he got it from his Greenbrier days. I mean, what a great resource. But we would make like a mousse with the foie gras into it. So you're cutting the foie gras with a protein that is not going to break. So you don't get it. So, I've made plenty of things where I ruined foie gras and ended up with just this big greasy mess. And I'm trying to figure out, geez, I just blew an entire lobe, right? But basically made this like a force meat out of that, folded that into your duxelle. So you got a couple great things. One, you're getting the foie flavor in there, but it's going to hold it too, and it's going to keep the moisture without helping your pastry get soggy. So
But I think you bring up a good point. So we're talking about flavoring things with truffle oil, and
right.
there's no such thing as foie gras oil, or you can
No.
make foie gras butter, but there's foie gras butter or different things. You can actually take a B or C grade foie gras and actually use it to melt down and put over French fries, or to saute different items in too. I think that to keep those costs down, but still get that flavor profile, you still can incorporate that into a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that reminds, and I totally forgot about. So now I know anyone who's been to Luxembourg. I know all of the team guys and anyone who's competed over there at the Culinary World Cup. The Christmas market there, right? They
Okay.
have, yeah, you know where I'm going, right? So they have a stand there and it's like a pilgrimage. We all go. We've been every time we go. We've been there. That sells Spätzle, right? They have Spätzle there, and they do foie gras Spätzle, right? So
Yeah.
they cook up, and it's really great. So the Spätzle, and they hard sear these chunks of foie gras and they pour it over the top of this, and you're walking around in the cold like a street fair food, eating Spätzle with foie gras and foie gras fat all over it. Like, my doctor hopefully is not listening to that, but like, it was so good. And it's like, and I remember when I went over the second time, we all were talking about going there. We're like, oh, we got to go over the market. We got to get foie
But
gras.
you actually don't need a lot. To the point though,
No.
you don't need a lot of it to get that flavor profile, because it's such a strong flavor
Right.
that you don't need it. So I think that's something that anyone can put that into any menu at a low cost, for using a lower grade of foie gras that has a higher flavor profile that can put into any part of the menu. You do a seasonal menu with Spätzle. You want to make your Spätzle a little different. Throw some foie gras in there, and you've elevated it. Throw some venison with that to make it. That's not cheap though. Let's come up with a less expensive. Put it with a burger.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, you've seen other ways to do it. Poutine. I think I'm pretty sure I've seen like poutine with like foie gras gravy.
Oh yeah.
You can, the Northeast guys, disco fries, instead of using like regular gravy on top of and gravy and like American cheese on your diner fries, right? What if you had like really awesome hand cut fries? You could do truffle fries. You put like a great like goat cheese on there, or goat cheese curds or whatever, and then like a foie gras gravy, right? So then you could, and then really shave truffle over the top, a little microplane, right? A great way to spread it out. And you got something that's like pretty cool for guys that like know that dish and from the Northeast and are doing that. there was a restaurant in Philly that was doing one of those back when, like I said, Daniel Boulud, when it was like his, $70, $80 burger, which now doesn't seem crazy, but they were doing it was like $100 cheesesteak. And it
Oh
was
yeah.
like shaved Wagyu with truffle French fries and or truffle cheese on top of it and gold leaf. And, there was a trend of that for a while. And,
They're
like everything, it got a little bit
Chef,
gimmicky.
we're gonna date ourselves though, but they're TikTok trends that our kids are watching it. We're not watching it, but they're doing a lot of this stuff on TikTok, so it's all
Yeah.
coming back again.
Yeah, I'm sort of. I mean, I do a fair amount of social media, food pictures, and I do have TikTok, but I don't ever go on there. It's just kind of post pictures there. But that the internet is such a great resource. Like I get so many ideas. Like a lot of these ideas that we've talked about today so far are coming straight off of the chefs that I follow and restaurants I follow, and it's in many ways it's a lot easier to research and develop these days. The inspiration comes from like so many people.
Well,
So
and
many.
these ingredients were only available to us back in the day. So you and I have been in the industry for 30 plus years. Back when we first started cooking, we were the only people who get those ingredients because they were in fine dining restaurants.
Yeah.
But now you literally can go to, I know at Wegmans up in New York, they carry truffles right in the grocery store.
Oh, absolutely.
You can buy foie gras pate pretty much anywhere. The Public, we live here in Jacksonville, Florida. They sell foie gras in Publix now.
Oh,
You can buy the Vermont. I can buy Vermont creamery butter to put into a product down here in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm not even anywhere near Vermont, so you get these really high end products just any day in the market. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot more of it. And that's why it's become an everyday thing for everybody.
no, absolutely, 100%. And I think that's as someone was asking, what's driving the caviar thing, and I think that's exactly what you said. These things are now more available. People see them a lot more. Growing up, I never saw caviar. I never saw foie gras. I never, none of that stuff was part of our lives. Now it's in the stores. Whole Foods every day. They see it online. My son is 11 now. Obviously, with his dad being a chef, there's a little bit more food than a normal home, I think, but a range at least. But he's seeing stuff on, YouTube shorts and TikToks, and he'll come up and ask questions about things that he's seen. That's just a part of life. And I think it's great for us, right? I talked about this and other things, but we're kind of chefs at arguably the best time in history to be a chef, right? So between the ACF, years ago forming to make us professionals and not, domestics anymore, fast forward to 2024, the Food Network is out there. People are growing up traveling to go, there's culinary tours to Mexico to go eat in the markets. There are people that aren't in our business going to Italy to take pasta classes. So we have people like that want to eat and appreciate great food. And, how great is that for us? Like, I know, the Food Network, my diners and my members, as the younger members come in, in their 40s and 50s, even now, that grew up watching the Food Network. So they've seen things like this. They've traveled and eaten food that, we really didn't do back in our day. So it's, they're coming in more educated, and a lot of them are going to be more open to trying things. And I think that's another thing that's driving the younger generation to try things like caviar.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was 20, even as a cook, I never tried caviar. We were lucky to see it at the hotel I worked at. It wasn't everyday use there for sure.
Heirloom tomatoes were the thing I remember back in my early 20s. Like,
Yeah.
it's so exotic to get heirloom tomatoes.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's almost, if you're every, Publix down here, I'm in Florida too. Like, you can get heirloom tomatoes in Publix. It's every
Year
day.
round, unfortunately.
Yeah, year round. Yeah. Luckily being in Florida, it's we have interesting growing seasons. So we have like 2 tomato seasons here, which is great.
Yep.
So I can get good local tomatoes and heirloom tomatoes here twice a year, which is fun. So, but the reality of business, I could never tell a bride she can't have asparagus in January. The members want tomatoes on their sandwich, they're going to get tomatoes on their sandwich. So, yeah.
You want to continue on, or I got some questions?
No, let's take some more questions.
So I've got a question from a name I know well. Chef Dan Follis is asking, can you share what's the most popular pedestrian dish you've made that you've elevated with a high-end ingredient?
The most popular. I'd probably say it was one of the duck things I did. I think, you know, at my last club, I did sell as a special kind of, you know, country clubs. We have a certain market. We have different things. We do a big scope of things from chicken fingers all the way up to, you know, foie gras terrine and a wine dinner.
Yeah.
So trying to find ways to make comfort food, that's a lot more fun for me. So I think it was probably the duck Salisbury steak. So I had these ducks, these really awesome ducks, tasty ducks, Dr. J's, right? So I had the ducks and I used the breast for something, but I had extra duck legs and duck fat, which is always fun to use, right? So I ground it. I made, you know, I made this and I seasoned it and flavored it up, kind of like the confit, had a little bit of the sweet spices to it. And I made duck Salisbury steak. And we seared that off and we made duck fat mashed potatoes and we had duck gravy. And then we thickened the duck gravy. We made a duck fat roux. But then I also had like these mushrooms are one of my favorite things. So I had some like chanterelles and some, you know, really great mushrooms that I happen to have, right? Big problem when you got this stuff lying around, right? So we made duck Salisbury steak with a cipollini, onion, and chanterelle mushroom duck gravy and duck fat mashed potatoes. And you know, we were able to do that, and everyone, you know, my members, we all grew up eating, you know, Salisbury steak TV dinners. So it's a real nostalgia thing. But we were able to make it a little more fun, a little more interesting. And I know we did sell that very, very well. The other thing I say was the burgers are a great way to do it. So whether it's a burger with truffles or truffle fries, but like I, you know, growing up the Midwest, like a patty melt, right? So we made a duck patty melt, you know, and we did it with caramelized onions, and I think I used like brie cheese instead of like regular cheese, and that sold really well. I think sandwiches are a great way to introduce the ingredient because, you know, who doesn't like a sandwich? And it's makes it much more approachable, which is what you're trying to do.
Yeah, you're reminding me up in Chicago because both you and I have lived in Chicago at parts of our lives. So it's a place called the Duck Inn, and they have their own version of a Chicago dog, but
Okay.
it's made with a duck. They make their hot dog out of duck meat.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So and it's got and I want to say it's got a foie gras butter with it's got all the other, you know, high end accoutrement, the high end versions of pickle and all the other quality ingredients, higher quality, and they, you know, they make their own brioche bun, but they've elevated. It's almost the opposite. They've elevated the Chicago dog and made the Chicago dog, which should be like a couple bucks, into like a $15 hot dog. So I think they went the reverse with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I might try that one. There used to be a place, I think it's called Hot Dogs
I
in
remember that
Chicago.
hot dog. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had I think he had a lot of things like that. I think
Yeah.
there was probably a foie gras hot dog and a duck hot dog, and he was playing around with those kind of ingredients. I remember reading about that place.
Yeah, this thing's kind of cyclical too. These trends, as they grow and they mature, and because back in my days when I was at Campbell's, we had the trend report, and one of our trends was hot dogs, the HAUTE hot dog, high end hot
Right.
dogs, and we were tracking those all over the country, and people putting all kinds of stuff on their hot
Yep.
dogs, and I'm starting to see that again now, though. It kind of went away for a little bit, and I do think that people picked up on it because of the Chicago dog. Because
Right.
I started seeing I can get I get an Italian beef from Chicago down here in Jacksonville, Florida now. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
because people moved all over the place, these things kind of expand and grow, and these trends move much faster too, and they also die much faster too, though. So it's hard to identify a fad and a trend these days, particularly because of all the marketing that's out there.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, we have I mean, when I was over in Naples, so I'm on the East Coast of Florida now, but I was on the West Coast for the past 5, 6 years. A lot of the population there had come down from Chicago or in the Midwest. So yeah, we could get I could get all the ingredients to do, like Chicago ingredients to make it. And there was definitely a couple restaurants there that had you know, Chicago pizza, Chicago hot dogs, and Italian beef, and giardiniera was you know, you can't get it all. You can order now everything online, but they would have it at the store. So
Well,
it's kind of fun.
now we got Portillo's coming down here. We got a Portillo's in Orlando now, so you don't
Yeah.
you can kind of get it from the source, not in Chicago, but here in Orlando. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I hit Portillo's every time I get back to Chicago. That's for sure.
So I got another question here. What's the
Yes, sir.
craziest dessert you've ever made? So we might have to go dig deep into that pastry realm and figure out that.
The craziest dessert I ever made. I did do something. Well, I made like I think I tried to make like a blue cheesecake once. And with like poached pears and walnuts, and I I did realize when it was done that it was not successful for what I was hoping for. it actually, I was able to turn it, and I've done it again differently as a different application and made it part of like a salad component, because it ate savory.
Yeah.
Um, it just didn't sweeten really, really well. Like I've seen, like, I've done like a goat cheesecake, I think is really good. And then I worked with a couple guys that we had there was like a white cheddar ice cream with an apple pie kind of thing, and
Yeah.
that worked really well. Blue cheese on a dessert did not work for me.
I
And that's something I'll probably never try again. So
I did a blue cheese, a blue d'Auvergne ice cream, and I did balsamic syrup with it to replicate the syrup, and I would never eat that ever again either.
yeah, it just didn't work. It was too much. And I don't think you could sweeten it enough. That, I mean, I like blue cheese, but that tang with the as a dessert just did not work for me. It did not work. So I've had many, many, many failures. I don't do a lot of pastry. I have a really great pastry chef. I'm fortunate. Um, I've had a lot more failures on other things, more than I could probably imagine. But that was probably my worst dessert ever, I think.
So that's the craziest and worst dessert then.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah. I tend to be, especially because my experience with pastry is not super, and desserts. I like baking more than I like dessert work. So I tend to stick to really classic things, and I don't think, and that's kind of me though. I think when I talk about what I do, people ask you, "Oh, what do you cook? What's your thing?" Um, I've never considered myself an artist. I don't like. I think there's probably, like, the tip of the spear, the tip of the top of the pyramid. There's a handful of chefs that are truly like inventing cuisine.
Yeah.
Um, Me, I hope on a good day, I hope I'm a craftsman. Um, but I think there's things that go together forever. Beef and mushrooms, blue cheese and beef, red wine, that kind of things. What grows together goes together. So I think I just kind of stick with combinations of flavors that have stood the test of time for generations. And maybe there's a new technique or a more modern technique I can put to it. But I'm definitely not the guy inventing cuisine. So, and I think, me trying to invent blue cheese ice cream was a really good blue cheese cheesecake was a really good example for myself to not try that. So
So you're saying don't take the blue cheese ice cream and put it on the blue cheese cheesecake then?
yeah, no, 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 I don't think that would work really well. So like I said, I made a really, I was happy with, I made like a little blue cheese cheesecake for a salad component. And I think I probably did that in a competition once. That worked really well. Because blue cheese and salad, right?
Yeah,
It
of
worked. I
course.
think I did a walnut crust, and so again, nothing really, super creative, but kind of a way to put a little spin on it. And that's, hopefully I can do that once in a while.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I say the same thing. I said, I'm not a culinary artist at the end of the day. I'm more of a crafts person or a technician. I think that's one of the downplays, and I think that's one of the good things about the ACF. I'm segueing, I'm squirreling here for a minute,
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, what we've served really well here at the ACF is for us that are craftsmen and tradesmen more than the artists, and we do have a lot of great artists that are within our
for
realm that
sure.
make amazing, beautiful food and very creative. But at the end, most of us are, many of us are technicians and craftspeople and very good at what we do. But I think that helps us taking the things that we know from these trendy things and putting them into, something that's, mainstream and we understand, but I'm not going to use it in any like ingenuitive type way that anyone's going to, oh my gosh, I just came up with the most amazing thing ever. It's like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree. And I think I was taught that in an early part of my career about craftsmanship versus being a craftsman versus being an artist. And like I said, there are some guys that are super creative. I've never considered myself very creative. I still don't. Um, I think I'm a pretty good thief. I see a lot of people's
Oh yeah.
ideas, and I try to make sure I honor that, and that, especially if I'm just recreating a dish, I'll say, hey, I was inspired by this guy. And, and I get inspired by so many of you guys, and things that I've learned along the way. And, I don't think I've invented one dish in my entire life. So
So brings up an interest. So Tiffany Poe, Chef Tiffany Poe is on here, and I owe you
yeah,
a phone call, by the way, Chef. But I'm going to ask a question from her. So it says, Chef Tim, love your food and all your pictures. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge. And of course, I have to ask AI, are you using it in your creative process? If so, what is it and how do you use it?
no. So I've actually, like, I've talked with I think I saw Tiffany's talk there, and I learned a lot. I don't know, like, barely anything about AI. I've never really used it. I have it on my list of something I want to look into. I think it has a great place. Um, I really enjoy the process of writing menus and like, I walk in and we do a lot of specials every week. We do like 5 or 6 features every week. And we change them all the time because I get bored quick. So I kind of keep doing things. So I love the process of, I'll go into my walk-in and into the coolers and look around and see like, okay, and oh, look, I got this. Okay, what else do we got? And I'll walk around. Oh, wait, there's some mushrooms. And I'll come up with some of my dishes that way. I enjoy that process. So I guess that's my creative side, right? So I enjoy that process of designing the menus and things like that.
Yeah.
So the AI thing, while it's interesting, it's not really at the top of my list yet. I think it's going to be huge, and I think it's obviously we're seeing it a lot of places, but I actually have not used it at all yet. I've looked into it. It's certainly more on not the food side, on the other side of my business, like the admin side, designing things like new job descriptions. I mean, there's a huge application, and I think it's a great rabbit hole to go down. I'm just not in it yet. It is on my list to do, and I learned a lot at National, and I know she's a big proponent and has done great work with it. So it's something that I do need to learn more about, but no,
Yeah,
not yet.
and it's on our trend report for next year, actually.
For
So
sure, without a doubt.
actually, so it's using technology in the workplace, but I haven't used it for food either. But I would tell you that it's definitely helped out in a lot of other ways too. But Chef Poe, I'll be reaching out to you to talk more about that too. So and some other things as well. But I appreciate the question, Chef. That's where we are for questions right now. So if you want to continue on.
Yeah, I think I kind of covered a lot. We could go on and on and on about different things, and everyone's got a ton of ideas. I really kind of just wanted this to be like a conversation and just different ways maybe people can come up with how to do different things and introduce ingredients. And like I said, as chefs, we always want to use things like this. I I'm happy making sandwiches and I have a great time doing it. And I love working in the kitchen, whatever we're cooking and making pizza and pastas and steaks. But there are also things that you really want to use that you don't get a chance to use. And so this is a way for me, I think, that I can bring in some stuff and have a great time and cook ingredients that I don't get to do every day. I run a club at this point in my career, and I started like everyone else in a little small, little hotel and a little restaurant, and I had one restaurant, and then move and multiply it up. And my current place, we have 3 restaurants running right now. I got 4 more coming next year. So once we open our new clubhouse, I'm going to have it's 11 kitchens and 8 restaurants. And I love that because there's so many different things I get to see and do. If I had one menu to run, I would drive everybody crazy changing the menu because I want to cook new
That's
food.
impressive, Tim. That's impressive.
I think it's like anything, it's a step. Each step was, one more, one more. For me, it's one of the things I really love about where I work is that I have these different rooms to do different things in. So we have a beach club where we're doing Florida coastal cuisine, and then I have, I got a snack bar where we're making pizzas, and then I have a fine dining restaurant. We have a cocktail lounge where I'm making homemade charcuterie, and so for me, it keeps me interested. But that way, I have different outlets for things. So I'm going to sell a great burger, but then over here I can sell some caviar, you know. And I think that's an important thing as a fulfillment from my end of it, which is part of what makes me being a chef. It's not just my job; it's part of who I am, and it's the really fulfilling part of what I do. I'm very fortunate. I'm one of those fortunate people that found something that I love to do every day, and I'm able to make a living at it. And it's something as I get older, I appreciate more and more.
Chef, well, and I appreciate knowing you and seeing you through a lot of that journey over the years too. I think we've known each other almost probably over 2 decades now at this point.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
and I think we've both seen each other evolve in completely different ways. And I've seen your cooking more than you've seen mine. The way you've probably seen mine has been in cans or on a pimento cheese sandwich in a Chick-fil-A near you or something like that. Less so than
I do
actual
remember
food.
a lot of critiques, though, my friend.
Hopefully, I was kind.
Always.
I do have a question for you to
Yeah.
share with everyone. So we're talking about foie gras, truffles, all these different ingredients. Where are some of the places you source from that can to help some of the chefs that are on here to find the source of
Okay.
for them to find them?
Yeah, for sure. Most of your broadline people will have things like foie gras and canned truffles and truffle oil, of course. So down here in Florida, Cheney's a big company. We use a local company, Cheney. They're fantastic. Not local, just Florida. They're actually, expanding a lot. But companies like Cisco, US Foods, those kind of things, they'll have some of those ingredients as well. But again, you may see the foie gras being frozen. And I think if you're going to make like a puree and you're buying grade B or foie gras chunks, you could buy, and that's totally acceptable way to do that. Your meat provider, whoever you're buying your really good beef and things from, they're going to have foie gras. You're going to be able to get fresh foie gras from them. Certainly, there's companies like D'Artagnan out there that have definitely foie gras and some of the higher end ingredients. I buy caviar from a number of people. There's a couple companies out there. I have a ton of respect for a company like Sterling, which has really great caviar. There's Haute Caviar, Brown's Trading Company, which if I believe they just Sterling, I think is it now?
Brown's now, yeah. Yep.
That's a new thing. I deal with a company called Food and Seasons out of the West Coast there. So they have a lot of products. I buy predominantly a lot of my wild mushrooms from them, like the true wild mushrooms. They get chanterelles and morels and things like that really quick, ramps. They're all like, the real deal thing. They have some really great high-end fish. I get sturgeon from them. They have, wild black cod and all those kind of things from the West Coast. But they have a really great caviar program. I bought caviars from them as well. Wolf Seafood, I deal with Wolf's out of Boston. They ship down here to me every week. I buy some, amazing fish from them, but they also do a caviar program. I've had, and we'll buy 2 different kinds for this, but they've logoed jars for me. So we have I can get my club's logo on top, and they have a great program for that. So you could sell, your logo caviar. We've done kits for Christmas. People will buy them. Obviously that's a holiday ingredient too, like New Year's Eve, right? So we'll do that, and people can buy a little kit for their house, and we'll get a little creme fraiche. Like Vermont Creamery sells this little, Vermont Dairy has this little jars of creme fraiche, and we could package up some bellinis and or a little bag of homemade chips and little caviar with a
Send them with the little belt so they can make it for their guests around the house.
Yeah, really, like the holster, like back in the day. So I buy it from them. But if you ask around, they're going to have a lot of stuff. Some of the really great wild mushrooms, my produce guys, the people that I deal with, one of them, Scalisi down here, family business down here, amazing relationship with them. They're great. They, they'll get real wild mushrooms too. So, and then some of this definitely becomes then seasonality of it. So for wild mushrooms, you're not going to get morels year round. You're not going to get chanterelles year round that are from here. So, you got to kind of pick and choose with things like that. So there's a ton of resources nowadays. I mean, you could buy everything online too, but commercially, start with who you have. You might be surprised that some of your suppliers now and vendors have those products, and they'd love to sell them to you. You just got to ask for them.
Yeah, I think just as we mentioned earlier in the conversation, when back in the day when we first started off, you would never even think of a broadliner having any of these things, but these broadliners have picked up a lot of these different smaller companies and made them available through them. So I think it's almost easy. It's easier now than more so than ever. Like I said, if the grocery store is carrying it, your broadliner is going to carry it.
No, I mean, I can, we can all make a phone call, and Honolulu Fish Company, you can get, blue prawns from Hawaii.
Oh,
you can call today, they'll be here in the morning, and they're still going to be moving, right? I mean, it's getting things now, while it may cost a little bit of money, it's a lot easier. I mean, the market is truly the world. You can get things from around the world now, and with a day or two, and it's going to be super fresh and super good. And you're able to cook with things that it was a lot harder to deal with before.
Yeah, chefs, if you missed any of those names of any of the locations that Chef Record just mentioned, this will be recorded, so you can actually go on the YouTube channel and find this afterwards, so that you can catch some of those. But obviously, we can all reach out to each other to email myself or email Chef Tim Recker, and he can certainly get you some of those places where he's getting them from. But again, a lot of your broadliners are carrying. But if you want some of the truly special things, there are some special companies that Chef Tim knows about. So. Chef, I truly appreciate your friendship, but also this conversation. This is the direction I kind of want to start bringing some of these webinars, and some of you, as you started hearing me talk about our podcast, webcast, we're going to start in January. So I think this is kind of a highlight, and I think this went really well. So I really appreciate you taking the time, all the information, and how to elevate. I would say we've kind of talked about both ways. We've elevated. Yeah. We've elevated the mundane, and we've also brought down the ultra high end, and I think that's really where this trend lays. So I greatly appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you very much. No, it's always good to talk to you. And I've said it before. I don't know what my career would look like if I hadn't gone to that first ACF conference and started competing and met all you guys. And I truly owe everyone there my career. And it's been a great journey. I'm looking forward to continuing it. And I will see you all very soon at the next conference. And thanks. It was a great conversation. Always good to talk.
Appreciate it, Chef.
Thank you.
All right. So just a quick reminder, everyone, you'll be getting a survey the next day or so. Be sure to fill out the survey so you can get that continuing education hours from this session. Also mark your calendars for our next webinars. On October 8th, we got Laura Urich. She'll be here with us doing a session on maintaining outdoor dining and patio operations. So, you know, here in Florida during the summer, it's extremely hot, and in the winter in other areas of the world, of the country, it's extremely cold. So you're going to want to make sure you don't miss that session and how we can maintain that. Then on October 16th, one of my favorites, Amy Ward, she's going to present our October's Hot Trend, the new bar. If you were at the ACF National Convention this year, you saw Amy there. She's going to be back on. She is another strong competitor too, so she's a strong women competition. So looking forward to having that conversation with her. And if you want to look for more details, head on over to acfchefs.org and check out all the on the events tab. And I just want to thank you again, Chef Recker, for a huge thank you to you, and so thank you to all of you for joining us today. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.